Welcome to the deep dive. We've gathered quite a bit of material recently, notes, observations from different reports, analyses.
Yeah, including a transcript focused on some pretty current cybersecurity news.
And our goal today, like always, is to really dig into this stuff.
Find those key takeaways, the important bits and maybe some surprising details to get you up to speed fast on what's been happening in cyber.
Exactly. We've got three distinct stories, but you'll see how they kind of connect. First, the way official cyber alerts are shared, or almost were.
Oh yeah, that's a piece of story.
Then how a big company, Coinbase, dealt with a data breach in a really unique way.
Mm-hmm. Very unusual response there.
And finally, some, let's say, slightly depressing research showing super basic security flaws are still a huge problem.
Okay, let's start with that CISA one. That's the U.S. Cybersecurity Agency, right?
Right, Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. So on May 12th, 2025, they announced something that definitely got people talking.
It really did. Because the way it always worked was, they published detailed advisories on their website, their alerts board.
That's the go-to place for tech folks, security practitioners, to get the nitty-gritty details.
But the change they floated was moving to what they called a social media first strategy.
Yeah, instead of the website being primary, the idea was the site would only have super urgent information tied to emerging threats or major cyber activity.
And their reasoning, they said, was to help critical info get the attention it deserves and be easier to find, which, okay, maybe.
But they also mentioned cutting off the RSS feed for the known exploited vulnerabilities catalog updates. That's a big deal.
Oh, huge. A lot of automated security tools pull data directly from that feed. So the sources said the reaction was, instant and loud.
People were saying it would cause major issues with existing tools that ingest that CISA data. You can't just switch that off overnight.
Apparently not. Because get this, within 24 hours, by May 13th, they reversed course.
Pulled it back, yeah. Paused the changes. Said they needed to reassess the best approach, which was probably wise.
Definitely. And the sources really dig into why it was maybe not the best idea in the first place.
The risk, right. Relying just on social media.
Exactly. Because government social media accounts, they've been hacked before, used to spread bad info.
The big example everyone remembers, and the sources mention it, is the SEC. January 2024, their official Twitter account gets hacked.
Through a SIM swap attack, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the attacker posted fake news about Bitcoin, which caused a real measurable spike in its value.
Which the attacker then exploited naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And interestingly, the sources note that attacker, described as an Alabama-based bad actor, was just sentenced for that attack on May 16th, 2025.
Wow, timing. $50,000 forfeit and 14 months in prison for that SEC hack.
So it brings up the core question the sources posed. How can anyone in cybersecurity trust info only on social media if you can't double-check it on the official CISA site?
You can't, really. Not reliably. That rapid U-turn shows CISA heard that loud and clear. It just highlights that tension, doesn't it?
Right.
Getting info out fast versus making sure it's actually trustworthy and verifiable.
Yeah. Makes you think, how do you check important stuff you see flying around online? Especially with security alerts. Tricky.
Okay, let's pivot ourselves. Next up, Coinbase. Their data breach disclosure.
Right, different situation. But still, about how organizations handle security incidents. And this one has an insider angle.
So the timeline, according to the sources, Coinbase found out about the formal disclosure of the breach around May 11th, 2025.
And then they did the official thing, filed an 8K with the SEC on May 14th. That's the required disclosure for public companies about major events.
Right. And how they found out is interesting. It wasn't their systems alerting them first, was it?
No, they actually got an email from the threat actor.
Yeah.
Basically bragging, saying, hey, I've got your customer data and internal docs.
Bold. And the method. Coinbase's filing says the attacker apparently got the info by paying off contractors or employees.
People working in support roles outside the U.S. who already had access to internal systems as part of their jobs. The classic insider-facilitated threat.
Although, to be fair, Coinbase also said their own security monitoring had spotted some of these people accessing data they shouldn't have in the months before.
Ah, okay. And they'd apparently terminated those individuals when they found that.
Yeah, immediately terminated the personnel involved, according to the sources. So they were aware of some suspicious internal activity already.
Okay, so the attacker contacts them, reveals they have data,
Yeah.
and then asks for money.
Yep. The demand was $20 million to keep it quiet.
And Coinbase didn't pay.
Nope. decided against it. Instead, the CEO actually went on Twitter, made a public video,
Really? What did he say?
said they weren't paying, and instead they were putting up a $20 million reward fund for info leading to the arrest and conviction of the attackers.
Wow, it's turning the tables. A very public countermove.
And here's where it gets really interesting, connecting back to that SEC story. Remember the sentencing detail. The $50 K forfeit, 14 months prison, May 16th sentencing.
Yeah, for the SEC hacker.
Well, the sources use that exact same detail when talking about the Coinbase incident. It says the Alabama-based bad actor was recently sentenced for this attack on May 16th of 2025, leading to a $50,000 forfeit and a 14-month prison sentence.
Wait, the same sentence, same date, same description for the Coinbase attack, too.
It strongly suggests it might be the same person or group behind both the SEC Twitter hack and this Coinbase breach.
That's quite a connection. Using SIM swapping for one and paying off insiders for another shows versatility, I guess, and how one actor can hit multiple major targets.
Absolutely. Now back to the Coinbase breach itself. How bad was it? They said it affected less than 1% of monthly active users.
Okay, so relatively contained in terms of user numbers. But what data was accessed?
Things like images of government IDs, account data, names and addresses, and more. Sensitive personal info, definitely.
But crucially, the sources stress what wasn't accessed. Private keys, 2FA codes, login credentials, or the ability to move funds.
Right. So no direct access to steal crypto funds, it seems. Coinbase apparently believed the attacker's plan was to use that personal data for elaborate phishing schemes, make them look more legit.
Makes sense. And the sources noted Coinbase tried to be very active and honest, really transparent as possible, about the whole ransom situation.
It's certainly a different approach than trying to handle it quietly. This whole case, the insider threat, the ransom demand, the public reward offer, and this potential link to the SEC hack. It's quite something.
It really is. What do you think about that strategy? Going public with a bounty instead of paying, could that actually deter attackers, or does it just escalate things?
Hard to say. And how might it influence other companies? Do you pay? Do you fight back publicly? Definitely gives security teams and executives a lot to chew on.
Okay, so for our last piece today, let's shift back to basics. Something depressingly basic, actually.
Yeah, this is research from Spec Ops, looking at just really simple password failures.
Right. So Spec Ops set up what's called a honeypot system. Basically fake servers designed to attract attacks so you can study them.
And they watched attackers trying to get into FTP services over TCP port 21 for about 30 days.
Now, FTP on port 21, we should probably mention, is old news. It's considered legacy, pretty insecure.
Definitely. Compared to things like SFTP on port 22.
And the big reason it's insecure is because everything, including usernames and passwords, gets sent in plain text.
Yeah, anyone listening in can just grab them. Not good.
So Spec Ops watched these attackers doing password spraying, trying common passwords against lots of accounts on these FTP honeypots. And the finding.
It's almost hard to believe the most common passwords they saw being tried were admin and root.
Just, wow, still, in 2025, with everything else going on.
Apparently, yes. The implication from the sources is pretty clear. Attackers wouldn't still be trying admin and root if they weren't still working sometimes.
Which means there is still a large number of FTP servers still using them. Somewhere out there, systems are wide open because of default passwords.
So the advice that comes out of this research is about as simple as it gets. If you have anything using admin or root as a password...
So go change it right now, please. Or anything similar like password or 12345.
It's just such a stark reminder, isn't it? Amidst all the complex threats, basic security hygiene, like strong, unique passwords and changing defaults, is still being missed.
Massively overlooked, it seems. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Do you have any old devices, maybe an old router or camera, still using a default password? It's clearly still a vector attackers are exploiting.
So wrapping up today's deep dive, 3 quite different stories, but some clear through lines, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. We saw CISA grappling with that whole speed versus trust issue for critical alerts. Very tricky balance.
Then the Coinbase situation highlighting insider risk, even from contractors, and showing a really unconventional, very public response to a ransom demand, possibly tied to that earlier SEC hack.
And finally, the Spec Ops research just hammering home that the absolute basics, like not using admin as your password, are still tripping people up.
Yeah, it really drives home that even with super sophisticated tech threats out there, so much of cybersecurity still comes down to process, trust, and just human factors.
Whether it's insiders being paid off, people using weak passwords, or even agencies struggling with how best to communicate vital information.
So, thinking about all this, the government alert issues, the insider driven breaches, the persistence of default passwords, what does this picture tell you about the biggest challenges we face in securing things today? Is it really about inventing better tech, or is it more about fixing processes and addressing, well, human behavior? Something to mull over.